Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast, is brought to you by, well, you. If you want to learn how to support our show, go to patreon.com/laststandmedia. Greetings and salutations. Welcome to Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast. This is episode number 183. My name is Colin Moriarty. I'm joined today by my sons, Chris Raygon and Dustin Furman. Now, it's a special sort of episode. I'm going to go to the boys, ask them how they are, but if you're tuning in for the week's news, this will not be that episode. We want to continue to have content going out in the holidays, so we are pre-recording this. And as we did, I think the last 2 years, we are both touching on the year to have, we've already experienced the last 365 days, and we are going to move forward now and talk about the games that we're really excited about for 2022. And then if you're listening to this, so next week, we'll be back. So don't get too upset. Don't get too worried. Yeah. We're glad to be here with you, and we hope the holiday season is treating you well. But I just wanted to get right into that, answer those questions. Chris, how are you today?
I'm doing all right. I kind of noticed the second we started recording that I forgot to clean my glasses today, which is annoying.
Yeah.
It was like, I usually do it like right before. I'm usually cleaning my glasses as we start. Because it's just it seems like a good time to do it. Why not?
We're all out of sorts. I actually had to restart the show, which I usually never do. Just wasn't feeling it. Then I could hear treble barking in the background. You know, I had to go investigate that. I also feel a fart brewing. I have to be honest. You know, one of those ones that kind of linger, and you're not certain that if you let it go, unexpected things might happen. Anything can happen.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I'm feeling today. But Chris, it's good to see you. Dustin, how are you today, my friend?
Doing great. I'm pleased because they put for pre-order the Persona vinyls, which there's a box set and it's $400. I did not do that, but I always told Holly, I told her, I said, listen, if they ever put the Persona 4 soundtrack on vinyl, I'm buying it no matter what. And today's the day. I did it. $120, which still,
it's absurd.
It's a lot of money, no doubt. But I don't spring for these things often.
Sure.
So I thought, you know what? I'm doing it.
Who am I to judge? I mean, yeah, I spend a lot of money on toys from the 80s. So who am I to judge?
Yeah.
A man just expanding his vinyl collection on a great soundtrack, by the way.
That's right. Yeah.
Well, it's good to see you boys, and it's good to be here with all of you out there. Again, hope the holiday season is treating you well as we go away. Hopefully nothing important has happened. Maybe Nintendo and Microsoft have created some sort of unholy alliance, and we're helpless to even talk about it. I have no idea what might be happening out there, but hopefully nothing newsworthy until we see
one of us might be dead.
That's true too. Yeah,
that's also yeah.
Well,
it's also differently possible.
This will exist. I assume YouTube will exist in 100 years, and so these videos will just always bounce around. I assume just into deep obscurity.
Yeah,
but someone could be watching this in 2100, and we are dead.
Yeah, probably. We're dead as hell. You know what I think about a lot is the fact that like we have recorded so much of ourselves in such a way that our great grandparents like could not have. So like just the eeriness of being able to like watch 270 whatever episodes of your great grandfather talking about anything must be so bizarre. And it's something we have no idea, but you guys will if you're watching this in 2200 or whatever the hell.
Oh, definitely. And it's interesting, but you're right, because especially I've talked about the 10,000 hour mastery thing with podcasting before, and how I think I've surpassed that 10,000 hour mark. It just must have been at some point, and that's just so much shit just out there. It would be impossible not to know me, and if you were curious about great grandpappy Colin, what was he like? Well, let's go watch his YouTube videos as we go to the moons of Jupiter.
It's so weird.
All right, I don't know what we're talking about here. Well, as usual, PlayStation podcast. This episode designed to examine 2022, and I wanted to begin with a letter from the audience. Of course, you can support us on Patreon, patreon.com/laststandmedia for early ad-free access to every episode of this show. Submit questions, comments, concerns, thoughts, and ideas to the show. Access to Sacred Symbols Plus as well, which goes twice a week on Patreon. Our interview series, reviews, etc., and so on. A lot of stuff going on over there. You can support us for as little as $1 a month. People want me to point that out, so I'm pointing that out to you. But come join us over there. Spectre Bull wrote into us and said, "Greetings, boys. Is it just me, Or is 2022 not looking too exciting? Between the third-party publishers and lack of exclusives, I'm starting to wonder if 2022 is actually going to be where we feel the effects of COVID on the industry. So, Chris, let's go to you first. In researching this, we each selected 5 different games, which is good. And just looking through things, I kind of don't disagree with Spectre Bowl. It doesn't seem like a super vibrant year, but I'm not entirely sure why that is. I think if you're an Xbox player, it's looking better for later in the year. I definitely am excited about God of War and Horizon, no doubt. But it does seem a little like, nah, I don't know. Do you think that 2022 will be a boring year, kind of like 2021 was?
No, I don't think so. I also don't necessarily think 2021 was all that boring. I think this next year, there's a lot of unproven material. You know, like we have a lot of stuff that very well could be cool and very well could not be so hot. I think we all have a pretty decent amount of faith in Horizon and God of War because there's no reason to doubt those. But everything else that surrounds it, you know, either looks like it could be really cool, like, you know, Cyberpunk looked like it could be cool, but we saw how fumbled that got. And I don't know, there's a lot of games on this list that it's kind of up in the air. So whether or not these things are going to land or not. And I think the more exciting thing about this next year is kind of wondering which ones are going to hit and which ones won't, because it seems like a pretty even keeled year for like anything to kind of surprise and like kind of take, like, we don't know, like between like Forspoken and like Suicide Squad and all these Hogwarts Legacy, I don't know which one of those is going to be the better game. Like, I have no idea. Could be Hogwarts. Could be like a myriad of other things. Like it's a non-predictable year, I think.
Yeah.
Which I think is actually a little bit more interesting than having a year where, you know, it's like, oh yeah, you got Halo and Forza and, you know, you have things that you can predict are going to be pretty good, you know, with not too many surprises, aside from like It Takes Two or stuff like that, which was a surprise, but you know, I think this next year is going to be interesting more than anything.
Well, I like your optimistic outlook. What do you think, Dustin?
When I was researching titles to talk about for this episode, I was realizing the same thing, is that there's a lot of games that I feel like I've got my eye on this year. A lot of games, like Chris was saying, that have seemingly a lot of potential, but also red flags that, you know, make you question, should I be excited about this? We're going to have to kind of wait and see. And the other thing that I was just thinking about this year is that I wonder if this will be a year where we see a lot of games announced and released in the same year, in that I'm wondering if there are some publishers and studios that are holding off announcements because just with the unknownness of COVID, that they would kind of just rather wait and see until you get closer to around E3 time and then announce a game with a release date for holiday. So I think Chris is right in that this is a really interesting year. There's no doubt some absolutely huge games. Many of them we're going to talk about here. And not just from PlayStation, but we mentioned Xbox, and surely Nintendo will release their follow-up to Breath of the Wild, which is notably one of the best games they've ever put out for a lot of people. So that's going to be interesting. But it's I feel like we should term it the wild card year for right now.
Yeah.
Interesting nomenclature as we also move into wild card weekend around the time this is going to go live, and the NFL will be just a couple of weeks away. So
I'm a big football fan, so that was like my connection there.
Of course. Wild card weekend, of course, the best weekend in all of football. Of course. I want to get into this. I'll go last. Chris, let's let the little boy Dustin go first.
No.
We'll each go through our games as we usually do, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, and so on and so forth. Dustin, take them in any order you'd like. I actually have mine in a specific order, and I'll present them like that, but I don't want everyone to have to play by my rules. So present your game, talk about it however you like, and set the precedent by which we'll do the rest of this episode.
So I'll go with the game that I know the least about, just because when I was researching for this, I stumbled across this game, and I remember seeing this a year or two ago announced and completely forgetting about it. But this game is called Grand Blue Fantasy Relink. And this game is particularly curious in that it's from Cygames, which is primarily known as a mobile game publisher in Japan. And while this isn't their first console game, period, it is no doubt their most notable. Grand Blue Fantasy is a huge IP in Japan. Like I mentioned, the mobile game is huge, but also they did a fighting game with Arc System Works recently. I'm trying to remember exactly what that was called, but that was recent. And so what's weird about this game also is just that this initially started as a collaboration between Platinum Games and Cygames. And then at some point, Platinum Games exited the project. I don't know if it's known if they left or they were asked to be, they told them they were removed. But in watching the gameplay, this game looks awesome. It is a mix of Platinum style combat and Tales, just coming off Tales of Arise. It reminds me a lot of that as well. And just a really visually striking action JRPG. And like I said, I don't know anything about the Grand Blue universe or story, but
Let's be honest,
what
is there to know?
Right. Yeah. What is there really to know? So overall, though, I'll be keeping my eye on this game, no doubt. The trailers, there's a ton of gameplay out for this game. There's a 1 hour video of gameplay that I was scrolling around in, and it looks really, really fun.
By the way, the fighting game that you were talking about was Grand Blue Fantasy Versus.
Yes, there we go.
And that came to PS4 in the West in March of 2020. So you'll already have that out here. And I'm actually looking at the roster of characters. These names all mean something to someone. Zeta, Vaisraga, Jita.
Damn.
But I don't know. I don't know anything about that.
March 2020 is like a rough time for a video game to launch, because that was like just Doom Eternal Animal Crossing month. That was just like nothing.
That was also the end of the world month. I mean,
it was also the end of the world month.
So
that's the least. That's the less important part of that month.
March 2020 will always be looked at as like a catastrophic month in history, very similar to October 1929 or something like that.
It was when Tom Hanks, when we found out he was positive, that was the moment. That was the
So when it all went,
it was all downhill from there.
I said I was with someone in a Chinese restaurant a few weeks before like everything went off, and I was like, thinking nothing's gonna happen. I remember literally I said that. I was dead serious.
Yeah, of course.
I think we said on the show.
I'm sure there's a whole litany of things that I said on the show. Where
I think everybody was wrong, man. Like, I mean, come on. Like, because we've been through like swine flu and stuff like that. And we were just like, whatever.
And H1N1 and all of that. But this was the one.
This is the one that got us.
All right. Well, good selection, Dustin. Thank you for that. Chris, let's move it on to you for your first of 5 selections.
Sure. I think I'm going to go with the one I also know the least about first, because I think that just makes the most sense. I think I'm looking forward, and keep in mind, this is we know so little about this that it's pretty likely not going to come out next year. I actually think it's likely going to be pushed, but it's slated for 2022, so fits the rules. But the Callisto Protocol is something that I have my eye stapled to, because this is this weird PUBG universe, Dead Space spiritual successor that, in the wake of Dead Space remake being confirmed and having seen quite a bit of that already, it'll be interesting to see a reimagining or like kind of a spiritual successor to that series with proper next-gen technology behind it, in a universe that I'm just baffled that it's taking place in. The PUBG name doesn't do much for me, but Dead Space is so great that anything that promises to harken back to that in any way, shape, or form already has my immediate attention. So this is one that I am cautiously optimistic for. We've seen very little of it. We've only seen, I think, a CG trailer of it when it was announced, and we haven't heard much from it since. But if this launches in 2022, like they proclaim it will, this could be pretty fucking cool.
I agree. I think this is a great selection. I don't know if it'll come out this year, or I guess I should say 2022 either. We're almost in this year. But coming to PlayStation 5. So first of all, one of the things I'm excited about with Callisto Protocol is that it's a PS5 game and it's not a PS4/PS5 game. So that's number one. Number two, Glenn Schofield, right? Attached to this. Great shooter name, and also one of the creators of Dead Space. So we have that to look forward to. And I love the idea of shared universes. I'm going to talk about a game in a little while that is also they're attempting to create a shared universe, although it's less obvious what they're doing with it. And I dig that idea a lot. I don't know why I like that idea, because I think it kind of limits you narratively, but I love the idea of things, even if they're not necessarily interdependent. And I'm curious, this takes place many years in the future of PUBG. So
yeah,
like I think hundreds of years in the future of PUBG. So I'm curious, like, what is even the relevance of the game to the Callisto Protocol? Reminds me of a much less intimate version of what Dust 514 was going to be on PS3 in connection to, of course, EVE Online and what CCP was doing. So, and that was, I remember you can read this gushing shit I used to write on IGN when they announced that. I was like, this is unbelievable. Because I really thought that was such an unbelievable idea, that these planetary battles are happening in EVE Online and you are the dudes on the ground fighting the actual battle and being but it was too complicated to understand. It was too complicated to work, and it's never been attempted again because it is clearly too complicated to do. So I think this is a great selection. Shout out to Craft Onford, which is the South Korean company, of course, that owns PUBG, that's trying to push that universe a little bit. And I think that they have to push or die, because PUBG is just no longer the name anymore.
Yeah, it's not.
All right, boys. My first selection, and I'm going in order of excitement for me. It's a game that was brought up early in the show, and it's Hogwarts Legacy. And we actually have a letter here from Dale Catraco, and I hope I'm saying that right, who wrote into us on Patreon and says, I'm looking forward to Hogwarts Legacy. I grew up with all things Harry Potter, but in the last 10 years, there hasn't been anything comparable to the wonder and awe of the original books and movies. I'm hoping they can take what made Harry Potter great originally and put it into this game. Nothing would be better than taking me back to some of the best parts of my childhood with a game like this one. Here's hoping. So my excitement for this game is not rooted in much, because I like Harry Potter. I read a few of the books in high school. As I said, I'm not familiar. I don't remember really what the story's about, other than that's like about a fucking orphan wizard and he lives under a pantry and shit. That's really what I remember about, and then he goes to school and he meets friends, whatever. But I don't remember the ins and outs of it whatsoever. It's been 20 years probably. And anything after Azkaban, I just never familiarized myself with in any way. So this is and there's going to be another game like this too later on, but this is a game that I feel like will allow me to finally find a connection to that universe, because I know that I like that universe. I liked the 3 books that I read when I was a teenager. I liked the movies. I dig those characters in that world and the magic and the wizardry or whatever. But I never had a way to stick with it. I just didn't stick with it. You guys know me. If I miss one thing, I'm like, well, I'm out, because how am I going to, I'm still catching up on the MCU. I'm in 2009 right now in the MCU, right? We're about to watch Iron Man 2 in January. So I knew that once I lost track of that, I was just gone. And I feel like Hogwarts Legacy is just going to be a way for me to connect with this universe, and hopefully a way that allows me to experience it, get something out of it, and hopefully my hope is to convince me to go, hey, let's go, man. Go back and check this out. There are quite a few universes I want to do that with. Like, I really want to reread Dune, and I know that's going to be a whole thing for me too. So this might be a flighty kind of want, but Hogwarts Legacy is not a game I'm excited about because of who's making it. Avalanche Software is making it. They're fine. They're good WB owned team, and they do good work, but they usually did like licensed games, Disney Infinity and stuff. But this seems like a AAA, very well produced game that I hope will allow me to find some tether to this universe. And I also have to say, and whatever, I really have, my respect for J.K. Rowling has just exploded in recent years. I know that she's very controversial for some people, but I feel her outspokenness on women's issues is refreshing. And I think she has everything to lose. And I appreciate that about her too. So I would also like to reward that in some corporate way, in some sort of commercial way, because I don't have any interaction with, she writes like these mystery novels, and she writes the Fantastic Beasts. So like this will be a way to here you go, JK. Good work. Keep, whether you agree or disagree, I appreciate your bravery and your boldness. I don't think a lot of people do that anymore. And so I wanted to throw that out there as well. So I'm excited about Hogwarts Legacy. And I'll leave it there if you guys have nothing to add.
Oh, I have something to add here, Colin.
Please.
I'm also excited because I was realizing I think I can consider myself a big Harry Potter fan. I'm just not the type that make it my personality. I grew up, I read all the books, saw all the movies. We would go at midnight when they premiered and stuff. And I have to agree with the whoever wrote in. Sorry, Colin just deleted the comment.
Yeah, I deleted it. Sorry.
It's okay. I
do that on some documents. I'm sorry. It's the only way I can keep focused on what needs to happen.
No, it's okay. But I agree in that I have not felt anything for any new Harry Potter stuff. The Fantastic Beasts movies, I saw the first one and I thought it was just abysmal. And maybe I should check out the second one and give it another chance. The third one just got announced, which ironically J.K. Rowling was trending at the same time for something she tweeted right when it was announced.
Yeah.
And it's funny, Colin, because you want to give money to Harry Potter stuff in order to support her, and most people wish that they could sever the tie of their money from Harry Potter and her. So it's the opposite.
But I don't think that it has any deleterious effect on her net at all, what she's saying. I just want to be clear. That's the point, is that I think her books were like exploding in popularity recently, like the exact opposite of that. So there seems to be people that are speaking more quietly, but fuck, why can't you speak out?
Sure.
And I think that's awesome. No one's afraid to say things from one side of any narrative. No one. There's no social cost. There's nothing to lose by saying certain things. And I think when people say totally normal, logical, reasonable stuff, like I think when Troy Levitt got fired from Avalanche, or left in quotes Avalanche, remember we went into that, and I remember I said I went into everything J.K. Rowling said because I was like, what did she say? What did she say? And I couldn't find it because it doesn't exist. Like, it just doesn't, like, I'm sorry. So, but regardless, you're right. So a lot of loud people in the industry are going to be very anti Hogwarts Legacy, no doubt. Oh, I can't wait to see the Kotaku shit and the Polygon stuff, but
that's so weird.
It's gonna happen
because she's basically a billionaire. Basically, like she has such an insane amount of money that like even if you boycott the whole, it's not gonna do anything. Like it's such a weird. Just enjoy the game, I guess, if you want to, or just don't play it if you don't want to. I don't understand. We've talked about boycotts before, and like how I just really don't think they even matter these days. But I gotta say, Harry Potter is one of those weird things where like I was super into it when I was young, and I was kind of like you, Colin, where I fell off. I fell off after Azkaban. I was like, all right, well, it's getting to the point where all these movies are like really, really blue, and I can't see anything, and I'm like,
yeah.
I like the whimsical tone of like the first two, and the third one was pretty good too. But I was like, I'm done. But Chamber of Secrets as an actual like video game is awesome.
Yeah.
Like the Chamber of Secrets video game from I don't even know, like it was like right? It was EA. It was early Xbox PS2. That game is awesome. Actually, it's like one of the best movie-based games, I think, like sincerely. And if they can capture what that game captured, which I think is just the feeling of actually going to this school. It wasn't even really so much that they captured Harry Potter as a character all that well. It's more so the feeling that you got to actually go to the school and like attend classes and like explore the halls of the school and like use spells to unlock doors and kind of like it was so much fun. And they had this whole nighttime section where you had to sneak around. Otherwise, like the hall monitors would like come get you. And I don't know. It was just such a fun idea that like I've been wanting a game to capture that actual feeling of being in that place for such a long time. And the fact that that's even a potential this upcoming year, 2022, whatever, you get it, is kind of cool because we haven't really seen that. I think a lot of Harry Potter games after that kind of focused more on the movies because graphics technology got better and you know, you can be like, hey, this is actually about Harry Potter and his friends. And I'm like, I just kind of want to go to the school and fuck around and fly. You could fly your broomstick around the entire campus. That is so cool for like a 2002, 2003 video game. That's like GTA. Like, what the hell are you doing? This is crazy. The freedom of that.
Some of the later games, I've not played them, but apparently they're basically Gears of War style shooters, but you're flicking projectiles with your wand. Have you seen that before? It's real weird.
Yeah, I remember seeing trailers for more, well, at the time, more of the modern Harry Potter games, and it did look silly because it was just like, it was like Vanquish almost.
Yeah,
they're just shooting spells like rapid fire, which just does not happen also in Harry Potter, so it's like extra weird to see. But
I'm looking at the just the release timeline on Wikipedia of all of the Harry Potter games, and yeah, there were a bunch of, there's iOS stuff, of course, and Android stuff, but there were some Lego Dimensions stuff in 2016. But the last games that were released on console, I didn't even think I realized these were Harry Potter related, were the PlayStation Move games, Book of Spells and Book of Potions, 2012, 2013 on PS3. And then Harry Potter was also on Kinect, and then they did the Lego Harry Potter games before that, and so on and so forth. And yeah, the release timeline for all of the accompanying games, all from EA, different EA studios. I remember that because I think I wrote the strategy guide for Prisoner of Azkaban, as I recall.
Learning a language can be daunting, especially when you consider the absolutely brain-dead ways we often undertake absorbing foreign language during our younger years. The reality is it's unnatural to learn, say, French, German, or Italian out of a textbook, with a ready-to-retire teacher up front, going through the motions. Language is alive, it's fluid, it's dynamic. And it's Babbel, the award-winning language learning app used by millions, that truly understands how language is taught today in the modern era. And with the new year upon us, and with resolutions shooting out of our mouths like a machine gun, perhaps you and Babbel can team up for a little language learning fun. While Babbel's competitors use AI to write their lessons, Babbel's lessons, spanning 14 languages, were written by more than 100 language experts, and these lessons can be absorbed in bite sizes, like 15 minutes at a time, focusing on vocabulary, or conjugation, or usage, or pronunciation. What I really liked in utilizing Babbel's French lessons was how it eased me right back into things. I took French for years, but not really, you understand. So it's time to start, well, at the beginning, and Babbel makes it a joy to do. With podcasts, games, stories, and even live classes, Babbel offers a scientifically proven method for learning some of the world's most used languages. And since you can get your money back for 20 days after signing up, there's no risk in trying either. Right now, when you purchase a 3-month Babbel subscription, you'll get an additional 3 months for free. That's 6 months for the price of 3. Just go to Babbel.com, that's Babbel.com, and use the promo code SACRED, that's SACRED. Again, that's Babbel.com with the checkout code SACRED to get started on your language learning voyage.
All right. So let's go back to you, Dustin, and
Colin?
We'll select your next game. Yes.
I've cheated.
What happened?
I've put a game that is currently unannounced for PlayStation, but I'm confident that it will come to PlayStation.
Okay.
And I'm also biased about this game. And that would be Nobody Saves the World from Drinkbox. And I say I'm biased just because my very first time ever doing games industry work or whatever was at PSX. My very first show was writing for the website that me and my friends started and doing videos. And we were seriously nobody, no audience, barely any audience. And we had next to no viewers or subscribers on YouTube. But Graham from Drinkbox was exceptionally kind to me and the team, and has lightly stayed in contact with me throughout the years. And we've DM'd here and there. And Colin, I know you're friendly with him as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I've said this before on the show, but I never forget the people that were just exceptionally kind when they had absolutely no reason to be. And so, yeah, I will always be super, appreciative to him and Drinkbox for that. Anyway, that being said, Nobody Saves the World is currently announced for PC and Xbox, which is very odd, being that their previous games were initially PlayStation exclusive at launch.
Yes,
and
I think they did a Switch game too, right? At some point, I think I'll look, but
yeah. So this one, I would be very surprised if it remained an exclusive. I think at the absolute latest, it will be early 2023, but I'm guessing it's going to be even less than that. Who knows, though? But either way, Drinkbox makes amazing games. Guacamelee 1 and 2 are both incredible. Guacamelee 2 in particular, I really, really loved and was really just shocked at how beautiful they made a flat 2D aesthetic on PS4 Pro at the time in 4K. They have like really unique lighting systems to light their environments that is just really, really cool. And this new game, Nobody Saves the World, is a top-down action RPG game where your character is named Nobody, and you can switch into different characters and level them up and gain new abilities. What is cool, or what I found appealing about the videos I've seen, is just that there's some elements of mixing abilities that sounded really cool. And as you unlock abilities, you can attach them to different characters for unique combos. For example, there's abilities where you can poison rooms, and then there's abilities where you can light poison on fire. And so it has some of those combos that allow you to be creative with the combat. And of course, this game just visually looks absolutely awesome. I think they have such a unique style. They have a style that is uniquely Drinkbox, that when you see it now from their previous games, you just know that it's them. And so I'm excited for this game. Like I said, I feel confident that it will be on PlayStation probably next year or shortly after. But I'm looking forward to this one quite a bit.
Yeah, I was looking. I don't know why I thought they did a Switch game between Guacamelee 2 and this, but I think this was the game I was thinking about. This is the first time that they're not launching on PlayStation. You'll recall that their first game, Tales from Space, about a blob, came to PS3 in 2011, and they were prominent Vita supporters. That's why I became friendly with them. They had a Vita launch game that was exclusive to the console at the time. It was later ported, called Tales from Space, a sequel, Mutant Blobs Attack, that people might recall from 2012. And then, of course, 2013's Guacamelee. I was a very vocal advocate of that game from the very beginning, and that was a PS3 and Vita game. And Sony had an interesting relationship with Drinkbox because they funded that game through what was called the Pub Fund at the time, which was basically a loan system in basically a 0% loan system or something to that nature, in exchange for the interest being exclusivity for a little while, and then you can bring your games elsewhere. And of course, 2016, they released a Vita exclusive called Severed. And that was awesome for them to do, because that was not smart commercially for them to do that. And that game was made for the Vita. And I know it later came to Switch, 3DS, and Wii U and stuff like that, so other people got to play it. But shout out to them, of course, Drinkbox, old friends of mine as well. Okay, Dustin, let's move on to Chris. Or unless you have anything else to say, I don't want to interrupt you. Okay, Chris, what's your next game?
My next game is something that we saw recently that I was not necessarily expecting to care all that much about, but it ended up kind of looking like one of the most interesting things we saw on the day that we saw it, which is Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. I don't really care that much about DC Comics, honestly. Like, it's not I'm more of a Spider-Man Marvel guy. But even the more recent Suicide Squad James Gunn film, I thought was like a lot of fun and like really well done. It was really like one of the better interpretations of that universe I felt in a long time. And it kind of made me it kind of introduced me to this universe a little bit more. So I already kind of went in the door, one foot in the door, to like caring about this universe a little bit more than I otherwise would have. But I think what we saw looked really cool. It harkened back to a little bit of Sunset Overdrive for me. It looked really kinetic and really fun. It looks like there's a lot of fluidity, and it looks like they really put a lot of effort into making sure these different characters played very differently, which was one of the things that I was kind of curious as to how they would pull off, because Rocksteady, for as good of a studio as they are, they've really only done Batman before. And I was curious as to whether or not if they could handle the different fighting styles of a whole team in that way. And it looks like they did. It looks like a lot of fun. It looks absurd in all the right ways. It doesn't seem like it's trying too hard to be funny. It's balancing a tone here that I'm really appreciating. And it just looks damn good. This is another game that we don't know too much about. We've seen kind of cinematic trailers. We've seen like in-engine, I think, cinematic trailers, but still no gameplay up until recently. And the gameplay that we did see was more of like a gameplay trailer with a bunch of different segments kind of cut together to look cool. So we still don't really know how 30 minutes or an hour of gameplay looks in Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. But given Rocksteady's track record and how polished this looked when we saw it at the Game Awards, I'm feeling pretty bullish about this being a pretty solid game. If not, I would probably bet that this is going to be one of the top of the year, I think. I think Rocksteady has the chops to kind of pull that off.
I concur. I think this game looks awesome. I wonder, my big thing is how and I'm sure this is a design problem for them that they had to overcome. It might be part of the reason why it's taking so long is how do you win? I mean, do you win? Are you going to win in this game? I'm kind of curious about that. Right? Like, how does that work? Right? And if it's a serious question in the sense that if you can't imagine beating the Justice League, then what does winning look like? Or is this alternate history spin where you do win or something? I don't know if that's bothering anyone. It's not bothering me. I'm curious about it because it has to be something that they've solved.
That's what's kind of fun about it. It's that that's one of the reasons I like the Suicide Squad is that there's really no way to predict how this is going to go, because the whole point of the Suicide Squad is that they kind of get fucked over. Like, the whole point is that they're supposed to lose. And you never know what, like in the last movie, David Ayer, they won, and in this next one, they kind of won too, but they kind of didn't. Like, it's a very interesting group of characters to follow, because you don't have to have that stereotypical the good guy wins moment, because you're playing as the bad guy and you're the good guy to you. So all conventions are completely out the window. This whole game could take place and you might not kill a single member of the Justice League. I really have no idea what they're going to do. And that's, I think, what's most exciting about this is just seeing how they play that, and whether or not they play it for comedy, and whether or not they can balance that tone well, because that's something that a lot of writers I find struggle with, especially in video games lately. Like, my God, did I just move that thing with my freaking mind? I think it sticks out in my head. I don't know why, but I think it's, I just feel really positively about this. I don't know. Like, I have a good feeling about Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. I think it's going to be a super interesting game. I think it's going to come out of nowhere and surprise people in the same way that I think Guardians of the Galaxy did for me. Only they've got Rocksteady behind them, and I just have a lot of confidence in Rocksteady, because even the game, man, people hate on Arkham Knight quite a bit, and I get it, because there are some design decisions in there that I didn't enjoy. But overall, I think that's a solid, like a really, really good game, especially on the platforms that it was running on. Not PC, sorry for everybody who got that game on PC, but that's a solid video game, and I have no reason to doubt Rocksteady's ability to pull something like this off. Granted, we've learned recently with Rockstar and CD Projekt Red that you can't always trust a developer, and then there's a bunch of different reasons why you shouldn't necessarily. But even with that caveat aside, I'm feeling pretty confident in this one. I just think it looks really cool.
Cool, man. Good selection. I think that's a selection that has to be made. My second game is Sea of Stars, a role-playing game that is coming to PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5 likely and elsewhere in 2022. And this comes from Sabotage, which is the studio that only made one other game, which is a game everyone loves, of course, The Messenger, which came to PS4 in 2019. And The Messenger is just an absolutely exceptional game. One part Ninja Gaiden, one part Metroidvania. So old school Ninja Gaiden, like linear Ninja Gaiden. It was just an absolutely exceptional game. And Sea of Stars is a game that is very different, but takes place in the same universe. And I was going to tell you guys, as I noted earlier, that there was a game that I really wanted to talk about that excels in, or is trying to excel rather, in making a loose shared universe. And it's inspiring for us at Lilymo, because we're trying to do the same thing with our games, where we're trying to tie them together in some way that loosely makes sense. And so I like that the sequel, in quotes, to Sea of Stars, although it's just in the same universe, is this totally different type of game. And if you go look this game up, Sea of Stars, Google it. It's seaofstarsgame.co if you want to check out the official website. You'll find a game that looks like Chrono Trigger a great deal, which is awesome. I love Chrono Trigger, not as much as others do, but I think it's a wonderful game, certainly aesthetically. And the art from the game, the actual character art and the concept art, looks really like Capcom Breath of Fire era watermark type character art. Really colorful, popping blues and reds, and I don't know. This game looks really, really cool. And there's something on their website. The game is all pixelated, but they have a dynamic lighting system in it. If you guys go to their website, they have this spinning wheel you can use to show you as the day progresses in a space, because it's all in real time, or in real time in game. And it's just stunning. Like, this is a pretty big team making this game, apparently 23 people. And it is intimidating to know we're making a role-playing game and there's stuff like this lurking out there that is just so high quality and looks so good. I can't ignore that this is a must-play for me. And The Messenger, I think, lost a little bit of its juice for PlayStation audiences because people will remember that it first came to Switch in 2018. So by the time it came to PS4, it didn't really have that same momentum anymore. But if you haven't played it, you really should. It's obviously you want to look up a trailer and stuff. It might not be for you, but you'll see it and you'll know that I love it. And if you know the games that I love, then you'll have some sort of way to identify it. But Sea of Stars, shout out to them, Sabotage Studio. Hopefully in 2022 we'll see this game. That's what they say. And so that is my second selection. Dustin, what is your next game?
So earlier in the show, we talked about how this is games we're keeping our eye on in some instances. And this one is one that I don't even know if I can confidently say I'm excited for. I'm interested in it and I'm hoping that it ends up being good, but there's many, many red flags, and that is Forspoken. So this is the team behind Final Fantasy 15, which is a game that I enjoyed despite thinking that it had a lot of issues. And this one is kind of odd in that it's a Japanese team making it, but they're using American actors and American writing talent. And it seems to be following in the footsteps of Final Fantasy 15's gameplay, maybe a little bit more fluid with more traversal options. But what I've seen from the gameplay looks pretty promising. I'm very intrigued. And the main issue, though, is what Chris mentioned earlier, is that some of the dialogue in the story just seems totally cringe, to put it lightly. Just very, very cringe. And it's disappointing. It's given me this weird lopsided feeling about this game that I feel like I want to be excited for. And just recently, maybe we'll cover this on Sacred. Maybe we have, or maybe we won't. I don't know. But they did previews for the game and dropped a gameplay video that was on their YouTube, and I think they gave it to IGN and a few other outlets. And then they removed it, which didn't make any sense to me. I watched it and it didn't look amazing. It was kind of slow paced. Like the selection of what they chose to put out as gameplay maybe wasn't the best. Also, there was a lot of technical hiccups and stuff. So I'm wondering if they just saw the reaction to that 4 minutes and thought this is going to live forever as something people click on to see gameplay. Let's remove it and add something new later. But I kind of would have thought they would have had a new video out by now to replace that. So the fact that they haven't put something out is very suspect to me. But either way, I don't want to judge this game too early. Yeah. It's I think the weirdest part of all is just that it's very in anime there's the term isekai, which is supposed to be, it's an entire subgenre of anime that all basically has the same kind of plot, which is a normal person from our world gets transported into a fantasy world that's like a video game. Sword Art Online, whatever.
Sword Art Online, is that what I was thinking of? Yeah.
That's probably the most popular isekai anime. And so this is an isekai game. It's just done in such a unique way with its actors and its writing. So I don't know. We'll see. Like I said, red flags.
Yeah. It's weird because when we first saw this game, I remember being pretty excited about it because I feel like the first selection of gameplay that they showed with no dialogue, it was very minimal what they showed.
Right. Yeah.
But I remember being impressed by it. I thought it looked really cool. I thought the movement looked really fluid. And then the second trailer had talking. And then I was like,
no talking.
Maybe
it's better when you weren't talking.
Yeah, it's better when you it's better when you weren't. So. And then this next one was just sort of middling. So it's just, I don't know. Like like Dustin said, we don't want to judge it too harshly. I mean, I judged the hell out of Death Stranding before that came out, and look at how that turned out. So this could be great, but I'm nervous about this one. But I am looking cautious. I have my eye on this as well. Like, I'm looking forward to playing it and seeing how it actually all shakes up.
There's, to your point, interesting writing talent attached to the game.
Yeah.
Amy Hennig and her longtime writing partner, Todd Stashwick, who worked on the Uncharted franchise with her a little bit, and Gary Whitta. So it's pretty serious writing chops. I just don't know that you can make this cool for me, no matter what you do. Although I'll try to be open-minded and wait, and it's certainly not going to be a day one purchase or play for me. But the name Frey Holland as the protagonist really bothers me because she's from New York City, and obviously New York City is New Holland. So it's a little too on the nose, a little bit corny, but whatever. We'll see. I don't want to judge you too harshly. But Final Fantasy 15 team, that's what scares me. While we get the Final Fantasy 14 guys working on Final Fantasy 16, which, by the way, is not on the list because it is not confirmed for a 2022 release. And some of us didn't break the rules as we played the game. Okay, so that leaves one of three for you to select from. Chris, what is your next game?
Oh yeah, so I'm going to start with I've reorganized my list on things that I'm most excited for. So number one is going to be the one I'm most excited for, and this is just something that's on the way. But I think obviously God of War Ragnarok. I mean, you can't. Like, I'm looking forward to this. I did feel a little iffy on the trailer that they showed because it did look a little samey to the previous game. But at the same time, I think the previous game was so good and so polished and so well choreographed and well shot that I think the sequel is almost a victim of the first game's success in the sense that there's really only so much higher you can climb for a game like God of War. I would hope 60 frames and stuff like that would be an obvious thing that we're not really seeing in the trailer because it's a trailer. But I think, just the visual fidelity and the artistic direction and just how surprisingly good God of War was to me. Because I was not expecting it to be that good. I really was. I remember God of War was coming out and I was like, oh man, they're doing a Last of Us God of War. Kratos has a daughter. It's like yeah, or a son. It's just one of those weird things where it's like they're just gonna give every single grizzled ancient PlayStation character a son now, or like a child, and it's just like that's how I felt. That's how I felt, and I feel like
I totally understand
what you mean.
It is funny when you think about it. It is funny when you think
about it. It's just the clown from Twisted Metal as a son.
Yeah.
It just, at the time, I remember feeling like they're going to go this route with everything. It's just going to be dire and serious the whole time. And then they did it, and I ended up liking it more than the original games. And, that's hard to do. It's a very difficult thing to reinvent a series like that and do it in a way that's very quality. I thought the single-shot camera was really cool. I thought the story was awesome. I had nitpicks about it. The menu navigation in particular, I thought was a bit much. I thought some of the RPG light elements were were so shallow that I question even the reason for them being there. It's like, oh, you could put fur armor on Kratos. Whatever. Cool. Like, yeah, cool. Like, I didn't do any of that shit. But the game itself was great, and I think having a sequel to a game like that, where that game had the opportunity of kind of people being a little bit skeptical of it, not being sure whether or not they can pull it off. Now that we know they can, the sequel has a lot of expectations. And to be quite honest, I don't know if they're expectations that are possible to meet. I just think this game was so cool and so good and so new that a sequel that is more or less the same is going to be satisfying, no doubt, from a narrative perspective. But I do think I'm a little less excited for this than I think a lot of people are, because I'm just expecting the same thing again, which is a good time. I don't think this is going to be a bad game by any stretch of the imagination, but I don't think this is a game that's going to surprise me nearly as much as God of War 2018 did when it launched. That said, looks gorgeous. I don't have a problem with them reusing a boat animation.
I was going to say, the boat animation doesn't stick in your craw.
No, I don't care. I wish more, to be honest, I wish more iconic video game series would learn what they need to change and what they don't, because there are certain things that I think are just so good that I think, like, why would you change that from game to game?
Right.
You know, like, just know it. Don't fix what isn't broken, I guess, you know? And there was nothing broken about that boat animation. It still looks good now.
And
so
that's
why
how Kratos pushes a boat in the water. That's just how he goes. That's how he does
it's consistent.
Thomas Kritz wrote into us and said, "Hi, CDC. For me, it's God of War Ragnarok. What stood out most to me were the characters in the world. The original trilogy was great for the gameplay, but God of War 2018, that did was make me care for Kratos. I loved Kratos and Atreus' story together, how much growth there is for both characters. I also really love the North setting. I don't really know much about Norse mythology, and the game did a great job in making me want to learn more. Can't wait to see where Kratos and Atreus' story goes. Thanks for everything and all the great shows. Hope everyone has a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year." Thank you, Thomas, for writing in. Yeah, this is a selection that has to be on the list. I must admit that I'm a little lukewarm on this for the same kind of reasons that you mentioned, Chris. And I'm curious what you think of it, Dustin. It's just, now that we know what we're going to get, which is something very high quality and very fun, I mean, obviously I'm going to play it day one. I think I'm going to love it. But 2018 God of War didn't stick with me the way it stuck with a lot of other people. I was more impressed by it from a production standpoint, where Santa Monica Studio really saved their studio with that game, and it's an amazing hit. And I think it's a revival, much needed, of a character that was just really stuck in the PS2 era for me. So there's a lot to applaud from it, but I don't know. It's not something I'm like eagerly anticipating like I even am Horizon or something. What do you think?
Yeah. So I'm watching through the trailer again, and I agree with you for sure that it feels samey. I think that my optimism, or the optimistic side of me at least, hopes that the main issues that I know, Colin, you had as well with the original game, being kind of the world structure and the fast travel, stuff like that. Yep. The little things, right. They can't portray the little things being fixed in the trailer. And I'm really hoping that that's kind of the main thing, since I think overall that was the main criticism of the game from many people. I think that overall, though, and this still lingers for me, is that I just wanted this game to be PS5 only.
Yeah, me too.
I want to know what, just because this game looks so good. The original looks so good on PS4 and PS4 Pro. It was shocking. And not that they were the only, obviously Last of Us was amazing. A lot of Sony first party really learned how to get every last drop out of that console. But the thought of fully next gen God of War just, tickled my jimmies a little bit. And I'm always going to be thinking about what that version could have been. So maybe, well, didn't they say they're only doing 2? They're not doing a trilogy?
They were saying that was the end of the Norse arc or whatever.
What's next? What other god kingdoms?
They should definitely leave God of War alone for a while after this. That's my sincere hope. But they probably don't know
the
that.
American gods, the founders.
That would be awesome. I mean, that's very BioShock
Dude, he
Infinite.
takes out George Washington.
Very, very BioShock Infinite. That's one of the cool parts of that, was like the reverence they held for specifically Washington, Jefferson, and Franklin. I loved that.
Yeah.
That was so neat.
The Iron Patriots or whatever, those machines.
Right, yeah. And they would like talk shit to you and
BioShock Infinite's so cool. Fuck all you guys who like hate it for no reason.
Yeah, you're dumb as shit if you don't like BioShock Infinite.
People are gonna be mad at that, but I respect it. I stamp that as well.
BioShock Infinite haters, stand down.
Stand down.
Yeah, stand down.
All right. Next up for me is maybe going to be a surprise for people, but a very similar selection to, oh, by the way, before I even say anything else, though, I did want to say this. Forspoken, May 24th. God of War Ragnarok. We don't have a date yet, so I just wanted to throw those out there.
Yeah.
We're fresh off of the holiday season, and you may find yourself a little flush with cash. But don't let it burn a hole in your pocket. Indeed, you should do the exact opposite. Saving your money should always be a priority. It's always in vogue, and establishing yourself with a bank account is the first step. For those looking for a flexible, easy-to-access checking account with no monthly fees or foreign transaction fees, Chime may be for you, and you can sign up right now at chime.com/sacred. Chime is all about letting you keep your own money, access that money easily, transfer it without issue, and keep it safe and sound. While more sophisticated banking services are sometimes required, I truly believe Chime is a great option for those who need something basic, accessible, fair, and transparent. You simply don't have to go with one of the big behemoth banks, and Chime is proof. Better yet, with more than 60,000 fee-free ATMs within Chime's network, including at many CVS, 7-Eleven, and Walgreens locations, you'll be able to grab cash with little effort and no extra, fees. Fees are also conspicuously missing from money transfers. Are you starting to get the idea? Chime is an award-winning banking app and debit card for a reason, because it works and millions love it. Make your first good decision of the new year, after listening to Sacred Symbols, of course, and join over 10 million people using Chime. Signing up only takes 2 minutes and doesn't affect your credit score. Get started at chime.com/sacred. That's chime.com/SACRED. Banking services provided by and debit card issued by the Bancorp Bank or Stride Bank N.A., members FDIC. Get fee-free transactions at any MoneyPass ATM in a 7-Eleven location and at any Allpoint or Visa Plus Alliance ATM. Otherwise, out-of-network ATM withdrawal fees may apply. Sometimes Pay Anyone instant transfers can be delayed. The recipient must use a valid debit card or be a Chime member to claim funds.
But I wanted to select next for me Lego Star Wars: The Skywalker Saga, which we do not have a release date for as of yet. And what's interesting about this game is that it's been pushed back many times. It was supposed to come out in 2020 and then 2021 and then now 2022. I think that this game really got battered, as many did, by COVID, especially considering Traveler's Tales is European, and not to give them any excuses, but I assume that the COVID restrictions were and still are much more stringent there. So I imagine if we really track this stuff out over long periods of time, I think American studios, even Canadian studios and others in Eastern Europe, et cetera, will have fared this much better than places where lockdowns, for better or for worse, regardless of how you feel about them, had people working at home, not able to meet with each other. So I think that's part of it. Also, this is a heavily important licensed product that probably needed a lot of back and forth between the entities. But nonetheless, this is going to be Traveler Tales' first game in a while, and they haven't made, I went to go check this, since 2008, they've only made Lego games. And the last non-Lego game they made was a Chronicles of Narnia PS2, later ported to PS3 and Xbox 360 game called Prince Caspian. Ever since then, they've existed in this world with Lego. And I like touching base with the Lego games every so often. I liked the Lego Star Wars Complete Saga. I think I played that on Wii back in the day. I played one of the Lego Batman games on Vita when that came out. I think I messed with one of the Lego Harry Potter games or something for a little while. And I feel like very similar to what I was saying, although in a different regard, to what I was saying earlier about connecting me to different universes and trying to give me a way in, specifically with Hogwarts Legacy and Harry Potter. I feel like this will be a way for me to kind of reconnect, not only with Star Wars, but because I know Star Wars, unlike I know Harry Potter, but make me like Star Wars again, like give me Star Wars that makes me feel good about the franchise. I feel like this game is going to be full of that kind of stuff, even from the games like episode 2 or whatever or movies rather, that aren't very good. I feel like there's just going to be a lot to like here. I feel like it's going to be very fan servicey. I feel like it's exactly what I want as a Star Wars fan. And Paul Dunn agrees. He says, "Hey, CDC, my most anticipated game for next year is Lego Star Wars: The Skywalker Saga." No, really, it is. I agree, Paul. I spent countless hours playing Lego Star Wars 2 on PS2. The combination of expressionless Lego bricks, ridiculous sound effects, silly yet ironic humor, simplistic combat, and an addictive collectathon is an experience that I don't think many other games offer. The new updated combat and added voices have me cautiously optimistic that the game I loved as a child is going to evolve into something I can enjoy now as an adult. Sometimes it's easy to forget that video games are just that, games. So even if this one is bad, it's not going to be bad. I know I will be chasing those gold bricks and mini kits like it's 2006. The nostalgia is strong in this one, definitely. And it's exactly what I'm looking for too. I remember when Spyro came to PS4, and I just for like a few weeks was just playing those games because I was just so into the collectathon. So I agree with you, Paul. I think that that's going to scratch an itch for me too, unlocking all of the characters. I think there's 5 stages per movie. So 9 times 5, 45 stages, like different worlds to explore. I think there's like 300 or 400 characters. There's going to be all these different collectibles. I'm excited about it. I'm really looking forward to this. Want a release date. Anyway, I've said enough. Dustin, what do you think about Lego Star Wars: The Skywalker Saga?
The most exciting thing about this game to me is that they're changing up the Lego gameplay. The gameplay I've seen is much closer to the character. Not quite a third-person overview cam, but definitely it's different than the old games. It kind of reminds me, before with Lego games, it was kind of common to say, well, once you've played one, you've kind of played them all. There's different characters and abilities, but they're the same format presented in basically the same way with some variations. They added open world elements to one of the early Marvel ones on PS4. But it was kind of like Pokemon. They're good. They changed the monsters up, right? This feels like the perfect change up at the perfect time, where maybe Lego games have been stale for me for a while. But the trailers of this just look really, I guess ambitious is the right word to put to it. Just that there's vehicle sections, either on a planet or in space. Just it looks like a total evolution and not just another Lego game.
What do you think, Chris? Anything to say before we move on?
Yeah, I mean, I think it looks cool. Lego is a series that I have very, very minimal experience with. I'm an only child. I had like some nieces and nephews. I would play Lego games at their houses sometimes. They're never my favorite things. Star Wars is not my favorite thing. This is probably not going to be something I jump into unless a lot of people tell me that it's really good, and then I might. But I do think this is probably going to be a good game. Like, I don't think this has a shot at being like one of those, like, oh, it's a 2 out of 10, you know what I mean? But doesn't necessarily scratch an itch for me. And what I think keeps Lego from being interesting to me is I feel like Lego as a game series, I think they need to get a little bit ballsy. I think they need to do, Lego Sophie's Choice, or
Lego
Schindler's List, just something like really Lego The Green Mile. I want to see that.
Well, they have the Lego Seinfeld kit you can buy now, so maybe
listen, man, if there was a Lego Seinfeld game, I'd have the special edition of whatever the hell that game was. I don't know how you would make a game out of that, but Jesus Christ,
just add
I'd
combat.
be the first person to play it. Just add combat. Yeah.
Well,
I was going to say, you might have a thing against Traveler's Tale as well, because of course they made 2001's PS2 game Wrath of Cortex and 2004's Crash Twinsanity as well.
Oh yeah.
So
you know what? I didn't hate those. They just weren't as good.
Oh, fair enough.
They were just, they existed and they were fine. Whatever. I'm glad we got the better ones later.
Dustin, you have 2 games left.
2 games left. Number 2, I was shocked when I went into the document because I was the last person to fill out my list and no one had put this game. Very shocking. That's Horizon Forbidden West. And we just saw a new trailer for this at the Game Awards. We got the State of Play. And I went and I rewatched both of them. And let me tell you guys, if you watch a stream of a trailer and you were interested, or I don't know, if you thought anything about it, go watch the trailer again once it's re-uploaded on YouTube in full quality, 4K or whatever, even if you don't have 4K TV. The stream adds such a level of compression that it's going to feel like a totally new trailer. I just rewatched the Suicide Squad trailer, which is now in 60 frames per second, and it looks way better. Not that I thought it looked bad at the Game Awards stream, but it significantly made me more excited for it just from the better quality. Anyway, my point is I rewatched those Horizon trailers, and it's shocking to me just in that we were talking about God of War was one of Chris's picks, and I was saying I was disappointed that it was cross-gen. When I see Horizon Forbidden West, it looks next gen to me. It looks like a proper PS5 game, and it makes me wonder, if the PS4 version is going to be significantly downgraded, or it's just Guerrilla is wizards and have made what will be the best looking PS4 game yet, which we know that they have extreme technical knowledge dating back to games like Killzone 2 and 3, of course. But I love the way this game looks, and beyond just the graphics, but the art direction in particular. It just feels so bright and vibrant. It has this tropical look to it. And it's funny too, we were watching the trailers. One thing that I was really impressed by was the underwater sections. It looked convincing. And a lot of times underwater stuff in games just does not look very good. And I was amazed about this in the first game as well. So maybe it's just the fact it's new robots or whatever, but the scale of some of these creatures, the detail on them, I can't wait for this game. And it's funny just because I wasn't lukewarm on the original. I really, really liked the original. Going back to it, I don't know, I couldn't get into it when I tried to do a replay. And something about this is just calling my name right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, Forbidden West is going to be great. And I'm a little skeptical of how much it's going to push things because it was started as a PS4 game. So unlike God of War, which I think might be more truly cross-gen, there was an intention at some point that Horizon would come out only on PS4. So, I mean, I was early on, but we have to remember that this game came out, the original Horizon came out about 5 years ago now. So it's been a while. I love Horizon Zero Dawn. I think it's an amazing game. It's one of PS4's best games. One of PS4's best exclusives. Is no game holds a candle to that, with very few exceptions. So we know we're going to get more of that with Forbidden West. I've stopped watching everything because I don't even want to see anymore. But it's so weird because although I'll be there minute one playing it and probably loving it, it's just not that anticipated for me because for some reason it's the mystery that is most intriguing by some of these other products. I feel like it's the same thing with God of War in a way for me, where there's not much mystery. We know they're going to be great. I mean, if God of War and Horizon are not 9s, are we going to be? I'll be shocked, truly. You know, so it's almost like, yeah, okay, almost like you're eating well, and you want to look at like what other people are. You were looking at other people's plates and kind of scoping out other restaurants and checking out Yelp. And that's especially going to be my next two selections. So I understand the excitement for Horizon and God of War. I share those levels of excitement, especially I'm sorry for Horizon. But yeah, they didn't make my list. Horizon did make my list originally, then I popped it off for something else. Chris, do you have anything to say about Horizon?
No, yeah, I think it looks super good. I think Guerrilla's coming into their own. I think with this one, I think their first game was definitely, in my view, it was a little rough. I think specifically just the choice to open with like child Aloy and she just looks like fucking Chucky. I really can't. Yeah. And you could tell that they were learning how to do this new style of game, which is cool because it ended up being great anyway. It's just, you can tell when something, it's kind of like Overwatch to me, where like Overwatch feels like the first attempt of a shooter. It's a good game. It plays well, but it feels like they haven't really done this before. And it kind of felt that way with Forbidden West in when I was playing it, and then just like the weird like Party City beards on people where it just didn't look exact. I don't know, it just looked strange in certain parts. But the environment looked great. That's the thing. It's like the environments always shine in their games. Like I think like Horizon Zero Dawn looks fantastic when you're looking at it, just like a landscape and you're just like going through shit. It's when they close in on people that it looks a little weird. And this one looks like they've rectified that problem entirely. Like I didn't see anybody that looked particularly strange in these. Like everything looks fantastic. And I do agree with Dustin. I think it looks way better than God of War does. I think largely because I think they had a little bit more room to improve. But I'm looking forward to this. I just hope that the minor problems that kind of built up for me while I was playing the first one that kind of prevented me from finishing it are kind of rectified here, because I didn't feel that way with Ghosts. Like Ghost of Tsushima, I really loved. And I think a lot of that is because they have experience with this third person open world kind of They have experience making it feel amazing to move around. And that was like the one aspect that I felt was a little bit lacking in the first Horizon, which was moving around felt almost great. And I think they probably, after all this time, have nailed it here. So I am excited for it. I'm a little bit more interested in the world of God of War, which is why this one didn't make my list. I figured somebody else would put it on. I thought you would put it on for sure, Colin. But
yeah, it was on my list originally, but I wanted to have. It's also important to me to like kind of sprinkle some attention towards some games that we don't talk about very often. Everyone knows we're going to talk about Horizon so much. We're going to talk about God of War so much, and that's going to be great. I'm excited to talk about those games, but yeah. It is. I understand why it would be surprising, but I also knew that someone else would have picked it up. I think that the reality is that I saw a list with no God of War, no Horizon. I think that I would have probably chosen them just because we had someone asked it, but I didn't have to. Suckers. All right, Chris. Let's stick with you for your second to last selection.
Yeah, man. I'm looking forward to Sifu. I don't know what the hell this is. It looks so neat. The animation of the fighting in this looks awesome. I think the aging mechanic every time you lose is sick. I just think the visual style of this game is awesome. It's a small game, but it looks in my opinion just absolutely exceptional. Like I feel like I'm going to really enjoy this, and I hope I do. Like you can always be wrong about these things. Anticipation is a double-edged sword in a lot of cases, but something about Sifu really grabbed me. This is a third-person kung fu kind of action brawler type deal, and it just it's very striking to me. I don't know what it is. It's something about this game is just calling me, and I'm excited. I was disappointed when it got delayed, which I don't really feel all that often. Usually when a game gets delayed, I'm like, good. It means there's more time to get it right. But this one, I was like, damn. I was like, I really want to play this as soon as possible. And it's very rare that like a smaller game like this can elicit that out of me. So I had to put it here just for that alone, just for enticing me to that degree. But I think this is probably going to be really, really cool. And I don't expect this. I don't expect to see this on a lot of lists because it is a smaller game that I don't think a lot of people are necessarily paying that much attention to, although it's got its own, fan base and stuff. But
it's it'll be interesting. Cool. Slow Clap, French team making it.
Yeah.
And they released the game Absolver, which I don't know if people played in the summer of 2017 on PS4, which people really liked too. And I wonder, I mean, it had middling reactions, but got some award nominations and it stuck with people. This is a very Kana like situation where it is a timed, I think maybe slightly or partially funded second party-esque timed exclusive game for Sony that will later come to other consoles, obviously immediately coming to PC. I think it looks really cool. I like some of the mechanics too. It certainly feels different, and I think that is one of the things I'm looking forward to. It's also imminent. It comes out in early February. Dustin, you have anything to add? I
like the aging mechanic stuff we've seen. That's one of the most interesting aspects of it for me. But yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing this one as well. I don't know if I have much to add other than that.
All right, my next game is my second to last game is Monarch, Monark. I'm really looking forward to this game. Now, it comes from a Japanese studio called Lancars. I'm not really into this because of them. They did work on Zanki Zero, which was like that Danganronpa guy's JRPG product. And they did do like work on Lost Dimension, which was okay, and El Shaddai, which was okay, whatever. But there are some people from the Shin Megami Tensei team that have gone to, I guess, Furu, which is the publisher, and Lancars, the studio, and they've made this game Monarch. You can go check it out. It's being published by NIS, so you can go to nisamerica.com/Monarch, ARK. And here's what it says. And I think you'll understand why I like it. In an academy linked to a mysterious realm known as the Otherworld, 4 companions lead to 4 destinies. Nourish your ego and madness to harness the power of demons in this tactical RPG. You suddenly awaken in Shin Mikado Academy. Before you was a barrier separating the campus from the rest of the outside world. Sound familiar? Within the academy grounds are the madness-inducing mist, cryptic phone calls that connect to Otherworld, and 7 pact bearers, each with their own demonic authority ruled by their egos. And the egos in the game are the 7 deadly sins: pride, wrath, envy, greed, gluttony, sloth, and lust. And you get points and experience in those things depending on the decisions you make and the actions you take in various situations as you create your character. And it fucking looks awesome. I don't know if it's going to be awesome, but I think it looks great. I'm excited about this game. I'm looking for something like this. I'm feeling especially saucy because of Persona 4, where I'm feeling into like with the JRPG genre, right? I'm feeling like I was talking about with Sea of Stars and others. I'm feeling drawn back into these games and the familiarity of some of the, because it sounds, what does it sound like? It sounds like Danganronpa. And I think that will be cool. It also has a little taste of Trails of Heroes, and it has a little taste of obviously Persona and all of that, Shin Megami Tensei. But I'm excited about this game. Chris, I won't even throw it to you because I know you don't care. But Dustin, I'm curious what.
Thank you.
I'm curious what you make of this product. I was wondering, I know we brought it up on the show a while ago, but I'm wondering if you had caught up on it, because I feel like it is a game that you would dig.
Yeah, I'm watching the trailer again now. It's funny because I think that this game has come up or has been brought to my attention 3 different times, and every time I completely forget about it until I see it again.
Then.
Yeah, but it's definitely has strong Persona and Danganronpa vibes, which is of course 2 of my absolute favorite things. And Colin, like you right now, I'm feeling the anime itch. I took a break after Tales of Arise because I really blitzed through that game and was kind of done with it. But now I'm watching this show called JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, which has just kind of reignited my weebdom. And so this looks really nice. I'm excited.
Me too. This is a February release as well, and I'm looking forward to seeing if it's any good. I trust NIS in some way to identify Western or Eastern games that are fit for Western release. They don't always do that well, but remember, they're the ones that identify Danganronpa and many others. Disgaea, of course, which is an internal product, and others. So they do have a good eye, and I'm excited about this. I'm a little confused why more people aren't talking about it, which is what makes me a little worried, but I feel like maybe some of the oxygen is being taken up by specifically Shin Megami Tensei 5. And this game looks so similar to that. I don't think it's going to play necessarily similar to that, but I think that's probably taking up some of the oxygen right now. Dustin, I think we all know what this game is, but let's go to you for your final selection.
My final selection, of course, is Elden Ring. And I thought very intentionally I didn't want to repeat the same things I've been saying over and over again. But I have a new thought just to put out there. And that is, one of the reasons I'm so excited about this game is that I'm just such a big fan of Hidetaka Miyazaki. He's a really, really interesting guy if you learn about his rise. He grew up super poor in Japan. Eventually he got a job, let's see, at the Oracle Corporation, and he did account managing is what he did. I was trying to remember exactly what it was. So it didn't have a video game background. And he decided to pivot to trying to get a job in the games industry because he played Ico. Ico had such an impact on him that he was like, yeah, this is what I need to do. And so he ended up getting to work at From Software after trying to get a job at all kinds of different places, and worked on Armored Core. And the original Demon Souls project, he wasn't even the lead on. They kind of gave it to him not late, but after they kind of didn't know really what to do with it, and they thought, fuck it, we'll give it to him. And the initial reception for Demon Souls was so poor that he thought that he completely blew it, and that was kind of his chance, and it would never happen again. And then obviously we all know that Demon Souls ended up blowing up and being a surprise hit. And just to see his rise, as we were talking about a few weeks ago, the art, I always say it wrong. Auteurs, yes.
Yeah, the auteur, yeah.
The auteur, but he's kind of the anti-Kojima in that he doesn't want to be viewed that way. He's very private, and he doesn't do, he does interviews, but he never tries to make it about himself. He makes it about his team and the game itself. And he's just always been very intriguing to me. And it's one of those situations where obviously the games are amazing. I love them, but my interest in him enhances the experience. And So yeah, Miyazaki, he's amazing. And the Elden Ring, we just got that story trailer that I mentioned I didn't watch at the Game Awards. A lot of people really, really liked it. He's been evolving his storytelling, particularly in Sekiro, while still being cryptic and weird, was more on the nose. And of course, this game has some writing credits from George R.R. Martin, creator of Song of Ice and Fire, Game of Thrones. So very lore heavy. In fact, that kind of, Colin, might be the biggest thing that would potentially interest you in this game. Is just it feels like there's history here in this new world, and I love that.
Well, I got to say, that's one of the things, although not to the extent you're describing, but one of the things that I thought was attractive about Bloodborne. I loved skulking around, and there's just a person inside a door talking to you, or there's just a little mysterious sigil or note or something. It is very intriguing. I like that kind of stuff. I'm happy you're happy, because I know a lot of people are really looking forward to it. And I know you brought it up, and I know we brought this up in the past, but it's important to kind of reiterate and really nail into people's minds. Demon's Souls was so weird as a product. Yeah. And I remember getting Demon's Souls at IGN and like in a box, like the box copy. And we were like, what the fuck is this? And as I've said in the past, the game came out and we didn't review it. And then people were like, what are you doing? This furor started to grow. And so we had a freelancer review it. I think it ended up getting a 9.3. Sam Bishop, who was an old freelancer of ours, did it. And there aren't many of those. There are just not many games then or now that just arrive and you're like, what is this? And Demon's Souls was that game. Anyone who, I don't want to say anyone, but most people who were like, oh yeah, I love Demon's Souls from the first second, I pre-ordered it and stuff. I'm like, I don't think you did. Like I in fact, there was so little furor for Demon's Souls. The story about Demon's Souls is that Demon's Souls is a PlayStation IP. We know that now from, well, we've always known that, but Bluepoint did the PS5 exclusive. But Sony believed in it so little that they didn't publish it outside of Japan. Atlas published it. And that's unbelievable. Like when you go back and think about that, that's unbelievable. Sony let From Software off the hook. It is one of the greatest business blunders, I think, in recent AAA history. Dark Souls, by right, should be a PlayStation franchise. And they just let them walk away and sign with Bandai Namco. It was a massive blunder. And that's what Bloodborne was trying to rectify. And now they're going to try to rectify with Bloodborne again. All right. Oh, we should read this from Jeffrey Leonard. He says, hey, fellas, my pick for most anticipated title is Elden Ring. In an industry that is spilling over with games launching in an abysmal state, it's nice to know that developers such as From Software are reliable to release a product that fulfills what was marketed to its players. I don't know. I thought I'm interested in, you know what you're getting. If it's not for you, there's no chicanery involved with how they convince gamers to spend their hard-earned dollars. I'm curious about what you think of this. I thought that wasn't the case with a couple of their games.
It's getting better, but definitely, I mean, that's the Achilles heel of From Software, is their technical ability in their games is not very good, particularly Bloodborne. Still, even on PS5, it technically runs at 30 FPS, but it's got frame pacing issues, so it looks juddery and weird. Same thing with their most recent release, Sekiro. If you play it on a base PS4, not good. So I think they deliver in the quality of the game, but they're not spotless for sure.
All right, Chris, I throw it back over to you. You can, if you have anything to say about Elden Ring, please do. But otherwise, I'm ready for your number one.
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to Elden Ring, but I think I was definitely not going to steal that from from Dustin. I'm looking forward to that game a hell of a lot. I think it's going to be awesome. The fact that we have a jump button again, I'm just like, yeah, it's a video game. It's a video game for me. Good. But I think this might be surprising to some people, because I don't know if I have that many obvious choices for 2022. 2022, like we said earlier in the show, is a wild card year. I feel like a lot of things could surprise us. A lot of things could kind of come out of nowhere. A lot of games that we think look kind of bad might turn out to be complete 9.5 out of 10 material. But I am really, really looking forward to A Plague Tale Requiem. And honestly, I'm not even really sure why. I think I played the first Plague Tale with a bit of, I don't know, maybe lower expectations than I anticipated, or maybe I just expected it was going to be one of these games that has me walking around with my wife real slow, just going through conversations, like, or just, this always bothered me. Like, even in I know now that it's a loading thing for earlier games, like in the original Gears of War, where you'd be sprinting and then all of a sudden Marcus would be like, he'd put his hand up to his ear and then you couldn't move more than like a stand. I'm like, why are you doing this to me? Just let me play the game that I bought. And this was one of those games. It was a slower game. It was a game where you didn't have a lot of offensive capabilities. It was very stealth oriented, very character focused, very story heavy, a little bit fantastical. I thought the setting of just plague-ridden France was awesome. I think on a visual spectrum, I think it really nailed this kind of middle ground between realistic and stylized. And I really grew to care about these characters and this world and this, just the technology around the rats. I thought was really cool. Just the way the swarms looked and the way that they kind of reacted to light and the different ways that played into the game really impressed me on a design front. I think it's like a really solidly designed video game. I had some gripes with it that I think were mostly technical. Like I ran into a couple bugs and there were some strange choices in set pieces and encounters, and some of the puzzles got a little boring. But when I finished that game, I felt like I had played something that I was thankful that I had played, and seeing this new game kind of promising a little bit more offensive capabilities and a little bit more of a kind of a second chance to kind of iron out those small details. If you can give me a game that I'm happy with but have criticisms of, I'm more than happy to see like how much the studios learn from it and how much they can improve on that original formula. And I think there's a lot to improve with the original A Plague Tale, but I think what could be there after those improvements is really cool, really special, and really interesting. And it is something that I'm just really, really looking forward to, and I definitely wouldn't have expected that before I played the first game. And I don't know, I'm feeling pretty optimistic about it. It looks cool.
I'm fascinated by Asobo because they also make Flight Simulator. And
yeah, so strange.
They actually have both of these products going back and forth, which is cool. And they're really growing into their own. I wonder if someone's going to scoop them up because they're working with Focus Interactive on Plague Tale, which is a growing publisher, and then they have this relationship with Microsoft. So I wouldn't imagine that they're going to be independent for much longer. I would definitely keep an eye out for them.
I mean, the sheer versatility in being able to make something like a Plague Tale and then make Flight. That's way beyond making Killzone and then making, Horizon. That's such a strange. The fact that one studio can do both of those things is wildly impressive to me, and the fact that they do both of them well is, that's a notch under their belt for sure. And I think you're right. I don't think they're going to be independent for much longer. Someone's going to scoop them up. I wonder who it'll be though. Hopefully it's not Tencent.
Yeah, I hope it's Focus Entertainment. I'm fine with them building a little stable for themselves.
Yeah.
All right. The final game for me is February 4th, 2022, gone gold already, so we know it's really coming game. Dying Light 2 Stay Human from Techland. I can't wait. This is the culmination of 7 years of waiting for this game, and it really has been about that long. I played Dying Light in 2015, and I played it again in 2017, and it's an extraordinary game. And in playing Far Cry 6 recently, which I love, there's so much Dying Light in Far Cry 6. I don't know if people who are playing it understand how much Dying Light influences in that Far Cry game, but it's everywhere. And I want to see if they can realize the potential of the original game, which I think they did to a great extent. And I think they have more to prove. They took their time. They did the antithesis of what CD Projekt did, which is they just were like, we're just not ready. We're just not ready. We're just not ready. We're just not ready. And that's annoying as fuck because this game has been in development for so long. And we've also seen them release so much DLC for the original Dying Light. You almost want to strangle those motherfuckers sometimes. But they finally got this game out, or they're about to get this game out. And I have high expectations. And I'm going to be going into this one pretty excited. the day of February 4th, I'm going to be all over this bad boy. And I love the way the first game tied together a very tired zombie trope with a very exciting and very nimble and very new, almost Mirror's Edge-esque traversal system combined with shooting and action mechanics. Really fun story, fun characters, cool world. I've stayed totally out of what it's even about at this point. I don't even know what the game's about. And so I'm amped up. Dying Light 2, Stay Human, February 4th, PS4 and PS5. I don't know if you guys have anything to say about that, but I'm writing it on my list, so I make sure to put that in the description. All right, guys, we have a few comments here from the audience that will round out some games we didn't select. So let's read them out. Ruben Barrett wrote in, said, "Hi guys, with all the craziness of Activision and Blizzard, my most anticipated game is still a little suspect, Diablo 4. It's already been delayed, and the constant issues of games as a service infecting just about every genre I'm a little concerned about. At its core, the Diablo games are non-monetizable. You play the game, grind, and pick up items over and over again. To alter this is to alter the game at its core and make it not a Diablo game. Excuse me. My pessimistic side has me thinking how Blizzard can screw this up, and the state of the company has me thinking they're at least going to try. It's really the last stand for Blizzard, in my opinion, as the quality of their games has dropped ever increasingly over the past decade. I'm trying to be positive, but goddamn, is it hard. I am not a Diablo fan. When I was at IGN, I remember Diablo 3 coming out, and people were just absolutely through the roof amped on the PC channel stuff, but it's just not for me. I'm not into these grindy-ass games. Are either of you looking forward to this?
Yes.
Talk to me.
I am. There's a lot riding on this game just with the state of Blizzard. We've talked about this in the past, but you have a game like Overwatch 2, which seemingly doesn't need to exist and is having issues with development. And eventually Diablo 3 got to a really good spot. And I think that the current version you can play is very good. But this one is a new Blizzard. It's new leadership. And so it really is anyone's guess what it's going to be like. I want it to be awesome, but I have very little confidence in Blizzard as a whole around it. So
what do you think, Chris?
Yeah, I actually like Diablo. I'm not super into it. I don't know lore or really any of that, but like I remember when Diablo 3 came to console, that's how I actually got introduced to it. A friend of mine was like, "Yeah, you should play Diablo." It's like, I'm not really into CRPG, like the loot thing. I don't know, like I'm not super into it. He's like, "No, it's actually like super fun on like couch co-op and kind of, it really is." And I played it with him, and it totally was. It's a lot of fun on specifically couch co-op with friends is so much fun. Like I don't know how it played when it came out on PC originally. I know there was like a huge like error that was going around that was like made that launch a disaster, but I have a really good impression of Diablo 3, and it's made me curious about Diablo 2, but I've been bouncing around between so many games lately that I just haven't bothered to look into it. But I mean, assuming that they don't fuck with it too much, I don't see how Diablo 4 could be bad. You know what I mean? Like it almost seems like they would have to try because the formula is so proven, and it seems like such a simple game to nail that like shoving live service elements in there. I feel like even Activision would be wary of doing something like that, especially now. You know, like I feel like there's almost a weird level of safety in the fact that everything is crumbling around them right now, because I don't think they're going to want to rock the boat in the way that they have in previous years. They're not going to go on stage and be like, "You guys have phones, don't you?" You know, they're not going to, you're not dealing with that Activision right now. You're dealing with an Activision that is scared as hell. You know, this is not a good place for Activision to be. I don't think they want to rile anybody up. If they had live service plans for this game, I would not be surprised to see those completely abandoned just as a way to kind of course correct the narrative in their favor, because I do think they are the studio to do that, or the publisher to do something like that, even if I do think that could be temporary for like release period, because we know that I know personally that they're totally willing to just promise things like, yeah, no microtransactions, get reviews glowing about how positive the lack of microtransactions are, only to add them in a patch like a couple months after the game comes out. Therefore, just really shady and dishonest. So it's weird. I want to look forward to Diablo 4, but I feel like I'm better off just playing the older Diablos. You know?
Well, I think we're going to find out. It's so funny because on the last episode or 2 episodes ago, we brought up Diablo 3 and the auction house and the clever way that they allowed people to monetize stuff. And they actually have an ability built into the game and built into the expectations of the audience that they could do something new, different, exciting that people can actually make their own money on. But what you're going to end up finding with Diablo 4 is like NFTs. And I mean, I just hope they know better because Diablo is sacred. It's not like Overwatch or something. Like Diablo is more important than that, I think.
But I was gonna say though that people really hated the auction house. Like I don't know a single soul who likes Diablo who has a positive thing to say about.
Well, fair enough. I always thought that it always sounded like a cool way for people to.
I don't know. Like, maybe
keep the
Dustin
microtransactions
has a better.
It just seemed to me that it's like the microtransactions are internal, right?
I think so. I'm not super familiar. I didn't engage with it on that level. Like I said, I played a couch co-op with a friend, but that friend and like the people who liked Diablo at the time that I was playing it. I remember a lot of negative.
Sorry. Oh shit. I'm sorry to interrupt. I got an important call there. I'm sorry. It's like when these people call, I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe they're actually calling me. Trevor Myers wrote in and said, hey, CDC, the game I'm most looking forward to in the new year is Tiny Tina's Wonderlands. The trailer and gameplay previews make it really seem like this is what Borderlands 3 should have been, especially with how bad Borderlands 3's story was. Wonderland is going to take the level of customization to 11 with the different character classes, races, and all the different offensive weapons like magic and the returning guns. The fact that spells are items you find rather than learn has me really hyped for the spinoff. Hope you all have a fun Christmas and a happy new year. So I just want to say, first of all, I love Borderlands 3. I'm sick of people talking shit about it. Borderlands 3 was awesome. Shit. I love Borderlands 3. I thought it was a really exceptional game and really fun. I have to say, when I was seeing this, I was just ignoring this over and over again. It does look fun. Like, there's no doubt in my mind that this game coming out March 25th on PS4 and PS5, in my estimation, looks like a ton of fun. But I just don't know if it's going to be one of those games that slips through the cracks for me. But I feel like this game is going to bomb. Let's be clear about that. But I feel like I might actually end up playing it. I don't know if you guys have any opinions on it one way or the other, but
yeah, I think it looks cool. I just I don't know, the Borderlands writing is really grating. I actually don't think Borderlands 3 was that bad. I think the thing that really got me off of Borderlands 3 was just the poor optimization of it. Like, it just didn't run well for me on PlayStation, and I just remember trying to play it and trying to enjoy it, and just all these frame pacing issues, and it even on performance mode, I would get stutters, and I was like, this is just unacceptable for a game like Borderlands. You know, it's nothing that complicated is going on. It's cell shading. If anything, performance should just lower whatever it needs to lower to get me to 60, because it's fucking Borderlands. Like, I'm not counting the individual hairs on fucking Tiny Tina's head. Like, I don't care. So that's the one thing that really peeled me away from Borderlands 3. I thought the story was fine. Like, I actually was enjoying where it was going up until the point where I couldn't take the inconsistent framing anymore. But I think this new game, I think it looks cool. I think the premise is actually a lot more enticing than standard Borderlands. I think the idea of like magic and kind of D&D, and I think the presentation is inherently a lot more interesting to me than just another Borderlands. Because Borderlands 2, in my opinion, was fantastic. I think it was really hard for any Borderlands game to follow that up, and I think Borderlands 3, in my opinion, didn't necessarily live up to Borderlands 2, although granted I hadn't finished it for the reasons I was stating earlier. But I have a feeling I might jump into this one eventually. Because I do think the presentation is cool. The writing is still something that I'm not super big on, but if the game is fun and the presentation is cool and it's interesting and it does fun things with the premise, I think I could probably see myself giving this a shot and giving it an old college try.
Cool.
You know?
All right. Let's hear from Joshua Anderson. He said, "Sup, fellas? Saints Row. I'm anxious to see if Volition can return this franchise to form. With GTA 6 off in the distant horizon, the trilogy remaster in terrible shape, and no other real third-person open-world games of similar style currently taking up the public consciousness, there's no better time to release. I totally agree. This was a game, actually, that I almost had on my list. I think that if it was 10, I probably would have had Saints Row on my list instead of 5 each. We haven't heard from Volition in a while. Now owned and owned for a while by Deep Silver, THQ Nordic, and all of that. But the studio long behind games like Red Faction and the Saints Row franchise. We last saw them in 2017 with Agents of Mayhem, which was the spinoff. I totally agree with what Joshua was saying. I think that this game has an opportunity. I feel like that's part of why they've delayed, is because they realize that they have a massive opportunity, not because of Grand Theft Auto's failure, but just because of the dearth of there being a single player centric open world GTA like game. So the fact that the game is coming out, in late summer, I think now in 2022 is excellent. So I totally agree. I'm looking forward to this game. Are either of you?
I'm cautious about it. I don't know if I'm looking forward to it so much as I'm curious how it's going to come out, because the trailer that they showcased, did they show another one? They did, right?
Yeah, I think
they showed 2.
Yeah, I think that 2 of them now, yes.
Yeah, the 2 trailers that we've seen so far didn't really give me a lot of confidence. I don't know if they're ever going to hold a candle to Crackdown 3.
Oh yeah.
Sure. That masterpiece. I think I don't know. This game looks like it's a good time for this game to come out, but at the same time, I don't know if what I'm seeing convinces me that they know why it's a good time to release. I feel like they're kind of going a little bit in this weird. It's not Fortnite, but I can't help but see this weird style that they've got going on, and just it feels like a mobile game sometimes when I'm looking at it, like the style of it and just the structure of it and just the way that it's advertising itself. Like, it has me a little concerned. I think the visual style of it, I don't think it's necessarily leaning to its strengths. But again, we haven't seen proper gameplay of this thing. And that is really what's going to make or break it. That's really what this whole experience hinges on, is the open world fun to play in. We have no idea. All we can go on is art direction, some hints of story, and just the understanding that it's going to be an open world game. We don't know what it's changing from previous Saints Rows necessarily. We don't really have an idea of what this game is yet. And that might be intentional, in which case, not a great sign. I don't know. This is one that I'm really concerned about more than anything. I'm curious to see how Volition lands this plane, but I'm not super confident in a smooth landing.
The one thing I'm paying attention to with this is just the real consternation in the audience or in the fan base of Saints Row. They don't seem to be pleased. So
yeah,
that seems to make some level of sense, but I also don't really know that they've seen enough or know enough to know if it's going to be any good. And that's kind of the thing that's bothering me. I just don't think that Volition would just miss like that again, because I feel like Agents of Mayhem was kind of a miss. And even Saints Row 4, which people forget even exists, is also, I think, a game that a lot of people didn't play. That came out at that weird cross-gen time between PS3 and PS4. We have to bring this one up. Jameson wrote in and said, season's greetings, boys. I hope you are doing well. I can't help but be the most excited about Gran Turismo 7 coming next year. I grew up pouring hundreds of hours into GT3, then hundreds more into GT4. After my Xbox 360 Red ringed on me, I brought a PS3, and the first game I got was Gran Turismo 5. With Gran Turismo 6 being released on PS3 right after I got a PS4, I never did dig into it, and I think a lot of GT fans had the same issues. So it's been a decade since we played a true mainline Gran Turismo, and I can't wait to sink my teeth into some 4K 60 frames racing. Looking forward to y'all's coverage of GT7 and all the other upcoming PS5 games. Happy Festivus, friends. Thank you, Jameson, for writing in. I don't think we have anything to really say about Gran Turismo 7, but go on.
Well, I would say I'm looking forward to this too, specifically because of the DualSense.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I think playing Forza Horizon over on the Xbox ecosystem really made me appreciate these kinds of games a little bit more than I have in the past. And I think the whole time I was playing Forza, I was like, this is great, but it would be awesome if I could activate DualSense while I was playing this. And if they take advantage of that, which I imagine they will, it would be astounding if they don't, then this could be really cool. And I'm totally down to check this game out.
It's funny. I was talking to Micah about that, where I was like, should I just play Gran Turismo? And it's like, I don't even have the frame of reference to understand this game. I don't drive. I don't care about cars. I don't care about sim racing. I don't care about, it's just there's no way to dice it. It's just not for me. But I know that this is a big game. Comes out PS4 and PS5 March 4th, so it's not too far off. Thank you for writing in. Dion wrote in and said, "Good day, Moriarty and Sons. Long time, first time. I'm looking forward to many games next year, but one I don't think anyone else will mention is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge. The older I get, the more nostalgic I get for old-style games. Dotemu gave us Streets of Rage 4 in 2020, and I thought it was incredible. A perfect combination of simplistic, old-school controls with modern sensibilities. Dotemu is publishing for Indie Dev Tribute, who I'm not familiar with, and I've never played the old TMNT games, but for some reason I am very drawn to this one. I think I would rather play a dozen well-crafted, tight, and fugacious games over the year instead of 2 or 3 big-budget and bloated live service experiences." Thank you for writing in, Dion. You don't know Tribute, but I know Tribute, and they're an excellent studio. You should be very excited. I think this is a really great selection for TMNT. So the game I'm most familiar with them is 2014's PS4 game Mercenary Kings, which was fucking awesome. And that was one of the very first indie exclusives to come to the console. I don't think it's on PlayStation or on Xbox and Switch still. It later came to Vita. But Mercenary Kings was one of those games when the PS loves indies. We were talking about earlier about Drinkbox, same era. And Mercenary Kings was one of the games that came out of there. But they released Curses and Chaos. They did Ninja Senki and Flint Hook. But the game that's really big for them in the last year or so was Panzer Paladin, which is on Switch and PC only. It still hasn't come to PS4. I don't know when it will, but people absolutely love that game. So this game is in very good hands. I totally agree. I'm also looking forward to it. And yeah, shout out to Dotemu. Really great organization bringing back River City and Double Dragon and all sorts of stuff. It says Macro here, but I'm pretty sure it was Marco wrote it and said, "Happy holidays to Santa's 3 most special elves." Yeah, you can say that. The 2022 release I'm most excited for is Gotham Knights. I know how you all feel about the so-called cape shit, but superheroes, comic books, and the Arkham games are very special to me. Nightwing and the other Bat family characters are some of my favorites, so I've been dreaming up this game since Arkham Knight's release. I only hope the gameplay manages to hold up what, for me, is a perfect premise. I'm looking forward to seeing your coverage of all things that are to come. Make sure to wish the chicken a happy Festivus between thrusts. Thank you, Marco, for writing in. So, Dustin, I'm curious what you think of this, because I have to say, when we brought up Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League earlier, which I'm looking forward to, this is actually the DC game that I'm much more anxious to play, because I like Batman a lot and that universe a lot. So even though it's not the studio you might want, Rocksteady is the studio you might want, I still feel like this is the game you might want. Do you have any interest in this one?
I'm interested. I am hesitant just because it's been a while since I watched that trailer, but I remember feeling like some of the RPG aspects, the leveling aspects that they included in the trailer seemed kind of strange. I also just am unsure about taking the Arkham formula and then changing it into a multiplayer game, whereas Suicide Squad is built from the ground up to be multiplayer. I need to go back and look into this more. I feel like I should be more excited since I was a huge Arkham fan of those games. And while it's not Rocksteady, there's still a lot of promise just from the IP. So I'll go back and watch this trailer. Maybe that will reignite something within me.
John O wrote in and said, "Hello, Bearded Ones and Chris. I got to say, I'm looking forward to 6 Days in Fallujah. We will finally see if the developers meant what they said about taking the story seriously, or if they just wanted an excuse to make a Call of Duty clone. A more lighthearted pick is the Suicide Squad game. Well, no lighthearted picks from you, John O. I like the 6 Days in Fallujah pick. I'm excited about this too. Highwire Games, Victoria Publishing, delayed an entire year. I think they didn't say 2022. They said Q4 2022. That's a significant delay. I think that means that they're getting maybe a little more investment, shining it to a sheen, and getting everything right, crossing the T's, dotting the I's. What do you think, Chris?
I hope it's good. You know, this is something that really needs to be as polished as it can be. There's no room for error on this, because it's already bad enough when a game comes out and it doesn't work or it's not good. It's another thing when a game comes out and doesn't work and it's not good, and it's supposed to be a documentary about real loss of life and real conflicts. You know, there's a lot of pressure on that team to get this right, and there's a lot of really incredible design talent behind this. You know, like I know Marty O'Donnell is behind the audio design. Jamie Griesemer is like a really crazy designer, and he's working on this as well. I don't know. I'm mixed on this. I think this could be really, really great, but at the same time, it has expectations that I don't think any other game has ever had. So, going up against those and sort of delivering something that people are going to be satisfied with, there's no way this game gets like a 9 out of 10. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I would imagine.
Like people are going to be, even if it's great, people are going to feel some type of way about it. And I think that's what makes me more curious than anything. I'm looking forward to it. I want to play it. I hope it's good. It would be cool to see Highwire and Marty and his team do something really cool that isn't just tied to stuff that they've done before. So I'm rooting for this one.
Worst fanboy ever wrote in and says, I'm so tired of that. Hello, Catechism crew. My most anticipated game of 2022 is a game that has been sitting on my shelf gathering dust for 366 days now. That game, of course, is Cyberpunk 2077. While I normally subscribe to and preach the word of do not pre-order games, I fell for this one hook, line, and sinker. And you should say stinker. CD Projekt has earned enough goodwill from me with Witcher 3 for me to trust that Cyberpunk 2077 would be more of the same. What I received with Cyberpunk was numerous bugs, multiple crashes, and no choice but to move on to other games. I still believe that CD Projekt is going to make this right, at least for PS5 anyway, and I am hopeful that 2022 is the year I can finally dive into Night City. Thank you for everything you do and keep on being the master of your domain. I'll play it probably in 2022 once it comes out, but we'll see. I just wanted to acknowledge that is a 2022 release for PS5. And finally, Black Magic Fuckery, the Bussy Butcher wrote in.
Oh my God. The Bussy Butcher. Yeah. Damn.
Holy shit.
Now, I have a question about this word bussy. Micah and I were talking about this. Is it boy pussy? Or is it, that's what it is?
I assume.
Okay. That's what I assumed too. And then she said she didn't know if it was just a way for people to not say pussy, like kids and stuff. And I'm like, I don't think so, because isn't it bussy is like not much better than saying pussy. They're the same thing.
Yeah. The more egregious part of the word is still completely intact.
But didn't really that analysis didn't really make any sense for Micah. But Black Magic Fuckery, the Bussy Butcher wrote in. Wow. Said, hey boys, I am sacrificing calves at the altar of Stray for next year. We have a 2022 release, but no release date. A cute kitty living in a street urchin in a claustrophobic cyberpunk city sounds like the game my 7-year-old self wanted, but assumed I never would get. Is the only CDC anyone can trust excited about this one too? And if I may, why don't we see more animal protagonists? This is good. This is a good question. Thank you for writing in, Black Magic Fuckery. First of all, Stray does look cool. It was supposed to come out this year.
Yeah.
It's coming out next year. Annapurna is publishing it. A new studio, I think they're called Blue 12, is developing it. And it does look neat. And I'll say it reminds me of the old PS3 game, Tokyo Jungle, a little bit. And that might be a game you want to look into. That's a first-party game from Japan Studio. That was a PSN release on PS3. And I think that's an underrated game. Like, I would like to go back to that one day and play it again. That was such a strange game and very strange. That was from the strange Sony era, which was fun. That was when they released like Rain and Datara and all that like weird shit. But any excitement for Stray from you guys?
Definitely. Yeah, I think it looks cool. I wouldn't say I'm excited. Like, I would imagine it's one of those things where I'll wake up one day, see that Stray is out, and be like, "Oh, good! I was looking forward to this," and then I'll play it.
Fair enough.
But I'm not gonna be counting down the days, like etching. What is it? Days since I heard about Stray into my arm in a prison cell or anything.
I'm excited. Just I love cute things. I don't know if the audience has picked up on this. I love small animals and big animals. I just So I'm watching the gameplay again, and just being able to play as this little cat in a robot world. Even if the game sucks, I will find some enjoyment in that little aspect alone.
He likes small animals and he likes big animals.
I like them all. They're all cute.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. Animals are wonderful.
If you give the cat a gun, I'll play it. Maybe.
Yeah, you put a little like backpack on him.
And he gun on the top.
And he pulls it with his tail. You know,
dude. I like that.
Be kind of cool. All right, boys. Well, that's all we have for this episode. This special episode of Sacred Symbols of PlayStation podcast. As we move into 2022, we hope everything is well in your lives, and you had I think by the time this comes out, you would have already had a good Christmas and around New Year's. All of that. Be well, be healthy. Chris, you have any closing comments?
No, man, I think we had a lot of good picks today. I was kind of surprised that none of you picked Cyberpunk except for that one guy, because I know you're all really excited for it. You know,
fair enough.
Dang.
Dustin,
it's a shame.
No, I was trying to figure out our last show of the year for patrons and technically our first public feed show of 2022. So just thanks everybody for the support. This has been a crazy year for the company at large, rebranding and bringing me on, and just very, very appreciative for this crazy 2021.
Yeah, it's pretty wild, man. I mean, we have several million audio downloads, but the show has really exploded for the year. But our show has exploded on YouTube, where it's not quite half our audience, but a lot of people are watching there, a substantial amount. So it was especially heartening to do video finally, and yeah. So we might have something to say about future episodes as well, future fun dynamic, maybe a live episode or something like that. We'll have more to say about that in the near future. But yeah, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah. Well, Hanukkah's long over. Happy New Year to all you atheist freaks and losers out there. I'm not much of a believer myself, but I hope everyone finds some togetherness, some family, and go into 2022 with your head held high. Hopefully things will be better than they've been the last couple of years. I leave you on that note, and we'll see you next time for more Sacred Symbols. Until then, goodbye.
See ya.
Take care, guys.
Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast, is a product and trademark of Last Stand Media and Collins Last Stand LLC, and is proudly recorded in the USA. The show is conceived by, is written by, and is directed by me, Colin Moriarty. My co-hosts are Chris Raygun Maldonado and Dustin Furman. The show is produced by executive producer Dustin Furman. It's edited by associate producer Ben Smith. All of Last Stand's theme music is by my best friend, Ramon Narvaez. As you know, all of Last Stand's shows, including Sacred Symbols, are fan-funded on Patreon at patreon.com/laststandmedia. The following names are at the producer level on Patreon, our highest tier, and we're grateful for your thoughtful and kind contributions to our independent endeavor. Thank you.